Imagine this for a moment. You're sitting in your usual church seat on a Sunday morning. The worship music fades, the lights dim, and instead of your pastor stepping onto the stage, a familiar figure walks in. His presence is gentle but commanding, his eyes full of compassion yet piercing with truth. The entire room falls silent, and then he speaks. Not with condemnation, not with vague religious platitudes, but with words that cut through every mask and get to the very heart of what it means to follow him. What would Jesus say if he spoke directly to today's church? That question alone should stop you in your tracks, because it forces you to evaluate not just your congregation, but yourself. If you're honest, you already sense he wouldn't start with congratulations for our beautiful buildings or our polished Sunday productions. He wouldn't marvel at our fog machines, worship sets, or branding strategies. He would look straight into our hearts past the layers of modern Christianity we've built and remind us of what he told the churches in Revelation. I know your deeds. Imagine him saying that to you, to your church, to the entire body of Christ in this generation. Would his tone carry joy or sorrow? Would it ignite hope or reveal compromise you've ignored for too long? And here's where you lean in closer, because this isn't about someone else's church down the street. It's about you sitting in that seat. He would remind you that the church is not a building. It's you, his follower. That means his message wouldn't be distant or generic. It would be deeply personal, pressing against the places you've grown comfortable. So what would he say? Let's step into it. The first words he might say are the same ones he said so often when he walked the earth. Follow me. Not follow a denomination, not follow trends, not follow the loudest voices on social media. He would look into your eyes and call you back to the simplicity of discipleship, walking where he walks, obeying what he commands, trusting him when everything else feels unstable. You see, we've made church complicated, but his message has always been simple. Deny yourself, take up your cross daily, and follow me. Imagine him asking you, have you truly been following me, or have you been following a version of me that keeps you comfortable? Here's a question to reset your curiosity. What if Jesus walked into your church this Sunday and found that you were more passionate about your political stance, your worship style, or your small group's opinions than you were about his Great Commission? What would he say? He might repeat what he said in Matthew chapter 28, verse 19. Go and make disciples of all nations. Not go and build bigger stages. Not go and protect your preferences, but go, move, step out of comfort into mission. He might also echo his words from Matthew chapter 23, where he looked straight at religious leaders and said, you clean the outside of the cup, but inside you are full of greed and self-indulgence. Can you feel how sharp that would sound to us today? Because we know how to look spiritual. We know how to craft Instagram-ready faith, but he would remind us that God isn't fooled by appearances. He sees the pride hidden behind our sermons, the self-promotion behind our service, the division behind our smiles, and he would lovingly but firmly confront it. But don't miss this. His words wouldn't only be correction, they'd be an invitation. Think of his words to the church in Laodicea in Revelation chapter 3. He told them they were lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, and that he was about to spit them out. Yet right after such a stern warning, he said, here I am, I stand at the door and knock. That means even when his church drifts into compromise, his heart is still to restore, to revive, to bring us back into fellowship. If you hear his words, he's not pushing you away. He's calling you closer. Now here's another thought that might catch you off guard. What if Jesus would tell today's church that we've become more like consumers than disciples? Think about it. We choose churches like we choose restaurants. What feeds me best? What entertains me most? What feels convenient? But when did the cross ever promise convenience? He might say, you're not here to consume, you're here to serve. You're here to carry my mission, not just receive my blessings. And this might sting a little, but imagine him asking you, have you mistaken busyness for fruitfulness? Just because your church calendar is full doesn't mean your life is full of the Spirit. He would remind us of his words in John chapter 15, verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. What if he's been waiting for his church to stop striving in our own strength and return to abiding in him? Now pause and think about this. What area of your life right now shows more striving than abiding? That question alone could reshape your walk with him. He would also speak about unity. Look at the church today. So many denominations, so many divisions, so many debates over secondary issues. Do you think he would celebrate that? In John chapter 17, Jesus prayed for his followers to be one so the world would know the Father sent him. That means our unity is actually evidence of his reality. Yet how often do we let pride, tradition, or personal preference divide us? If he stood before us today, he might say, "How can you preach my love to the world when you cannot love each other?" That question should pierce us deeply. But then he might smile with that unshakable gentleness and remind us, "By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." From John chapter 13, verse 35. What if his greatest call to today's church is not louder preaching, but deeper loving? Have you ever wondered if the reason the world ignores the church is because the church has started to look too much like the world? We chase status, power, and wealth just as much as everyone else. Yet Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 14, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden." If we blend in so much that the world can't see the difference, what light are we offering? He would call us back to holiness, not as a list of rules, but as a reflection of his own character. Now think about this. How different would your daily life look if you truly lived as the light of the world? Not perfect, but distinct. Not self-righteous, but radiant with his presence. And here's the good news. If Jesus spoke to today's church, his words would not only confront, but also empower. He would remind us that the same Spirit that raised him from the dead lives in us. That means the church is not weak, even if culture says we are irrelevant. The church is unstoppable, not because of us, but because he promised in Matthew chapter 16, verse 18, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it." Do you realize that when you step into your identity as part of his church, you are part of something hell itself cannot stop? So what would Jesus say to today's church? He would say, "Return to me, follow me, love each other, go into the world, bear fruit that lasts, shine as the light you were made to be, and never forget, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." And here's the question only you can answer. If he were speaking those words directly to you today, how would you respond? Would you shrug them off as a nice idea? Or would you fall to your knees and say, "Lord, start with me"? Because revival in the church doesn't begin with crowds. It begins with individuals who hear his voice and obey. And maybe that's why you're watching this right now. Not by accident, not by coincidence, but because he's knocking on the door of your own heart, calling you to open it. So as this ends, don't just let it be a message. Let it be a turning point. Step into the kind of faith that not only hears what Jesus would say to today's church, but actually lives it out. And if you've felt that tug in your spirit, share in the comments what you believe Jesus is calling you to change. Because the world doesn't just need another church service, it needs a church alive with his presence.